Alright guys, so in this video we're going to go over creating blocks here in AutoCAD. So the basic option is for insert, it's create block. We also have the option to do a right block, so we'll do that one first. And so if I've got, I don't know, some stuff, and I want to make this into its own file, so maybe I've got a bunch of other stuff, but I want this to go out and become its own file, I can go to do a right block or a W block. I'm gonna kind of pick what I can do. If I already have some blocks set up, I can turn one of those. I can do the entire drawing or objects. And then kind of similar with how you're gonna see it for regular blocks is we can always pick up base point, which is something we want to do. So that's kind of how we're gonna hold on to it. And then we want the objects. For just geometry, the order doesn't matter. When we get into attributes, the order matters, how you pick it. And then telling it what you want to do. Do we just want to turn it into a block? Do we want to delete it from the drawing, or do you want to just leave it like it is as regular geometry? So I'm just going to say, go ahead and just convert it to a block. Say OK. And notice that down here is telling me where it was putting that, and I forgot to change the name of that. So if I go to my documents, there's that new block right there. If I just drag it up into the top, there it is, and it's two things, and it's just its own drawing file. Ta-da, the end. So if you're in a drawing, you've done a bunch of stuff, and you want to turn that into its own drawing file, making W block is a real great way to just take those couple of things or whatever it is and make it into its own file. So now we'll get into kind of doing actual stuff in our file. You can see that new block was here. It automatically still stays in the file. Since we're told to convert as a block, so I can just click that and drop it in if I want to. Ta-da, just like when we were doing insert. So some other things I can do. Of course, I can have whatever else I want in it. But say I do a rectangle. I'm going to do it one by one and set it there. So I have this. So I want to make a new block. I'm going to create a block. I need to give it a name. So it's going to give me a list of the different names of existing blocks. I don't really care about it, but I'm just going to call this I for inches. Because I want to show you something cool here. So base point, you can click specify on screen for each of those. I don't like to do that. I like to do it ahead of time. How do I want to hold on to it? So I'm going to hold on to it by the midpoint down there. The objects, I'm going to select objects, pick this, and I'm going to leave the stuff all alone. So scale uniformly, that means that when you insert it, it has to insert it with the X and the Y being equal. So like the square, I can't squish it. If I want to be able to change the X and Y separately, uncheck that. If I want to make it so I can't explode it and get just back to regular individual lines, I can uncheck this, and so then they'll bring it as a block, but they can't explode it and do other stuff with it. So I'm just going to leave it there. For this, it doesn't matter. And I can hit OK and create that block. One of the things though is if we look over here under the settings, for the units, it's saying this block is in inches. If you've heard me talking before, I usually don't care about units in a drawing, except when we're doing blocks. Because now when I come over here, and I go and look at my utilities, my units. Right now my units for insertion scale are set to inches. So if I insert this, and then I measure it, it's 1, because they're matching. If I change my insertion scale to, say, millimeters, and say OK. Now when I insert this, it's inserting it at 25.4 millimeters, which is 1 inch. And so this is the time that it really matters of what you're doing. So that way you're creating things at the right scales and sizes. But it also makes it easy so that if you create something and you're working in millimeters and you need to draw something in feet real quick, you draw it in feet, you make it a block with the feet as a unit and insert it back in, and then it's the correct scale. So it's a really easy thing to do that. So doing that scale there is kind of a nice little trick to do that you can use to do things. So to kind of get rid of those, and I'm going to kind of draw some little circles, some little 1/2 inch diameter circles. I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it. Times, and I probably should have put my text in there first. So I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to add some text, just some single line text. And I'm going to go and change the properties of that, make it centered. So I'm going to go to middle. There we go. And I'll just stick that on the center there. All right, so 2 there. So this is what I'm just going to call AC, a text, and S. So for this one, I'm going to make my text annotative. So I'm going to style, select annotative. This one, leave my text standard. I want to make the circle annotative. And this one I'm just going to leave alone. So here when I make my block, I'm going to say annotative under my behavior. Pick my point there, pick my objects there, and then I'm just going to do it to inches. Let's say, oh, see, it was defaulted to my same units, so it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do that. Say go. I want to set my units back to inches just because. So this one now, I'm going to leave that annotative off there and go to the middle there. If you don't pick your base point, then it's going to use the 0, 0 as the base point, which in my case is like way over there. Oops, I meant to do the other one as AC. Uh-oh. See what happens when you misdo things. I'm just going to leave this one alone. Say, okay. See, my 0 point was way over here. So let's see. If I go to my layout and I set my scale and I insert those blocks, so put in S. That one where the circle, the whole block is annotative, and this one where the text is annotative. And now I change my scale. See that? This one where the whole block was annotative, the whole block disappeared. The one where just the text was annotative, the text disappeared. And this one just stayed where it was. If I turn on all my annotative objects, I can right click and usually I can go in and add an annotative scale, but I don't have that option here. If I pick this one, let me unselect both those. I do have it, and see the whole thing got bigger. So if I can go to, quarter scale and add that back in, it gets the whole block gets even bigger. This one where I just had the text annotative, I can't even make that text go to the new scale because it's kind of stuck within that circle. But this one, I can move over. So one little trick, nice little thing is that if you want your block to be able to move with your viewport scale, make the whole block annotative. Now let's look at some of those other options there. Just drop that into here. Again, when in model space, it doesn't matter because they're all going to be one-to-one. I had it say allow exploding, so now I can pick it, and it lets me select it. I pick this one, it's there, picks all together. That the handle there is where I put that in. Which also, if I try and draw a line, and I go to the insertion point, so insert right there, that's going to go to that corner right there. Or in this case, it's going to go to that center that I selected as my insertion point. So I can create things like that. If I need to change things in a block, so I'm going to throw in a couple more of these things. I decide I block, but I want to make some changes to it. I can go into this block editor, pick the block, and say OK. And now I have it here, and I can start doing stuff. Some common ones are to move the base point. So move the base point over there. And then maybe I need to draw something else in there or something. Change a layer, any of that stuff, so I can pick on that. Make a new layer. Maybe, like I said, I don't want this to follow the properties of the zero layer. I want it to stay there. I do my changes, close the block editor, save the changes, and now all three are done. And now if I do go into here, make a new layer, it's my favorite layer name. Pick this block, stick it on that layer, and it's changed. Pick this one, change the color of it. That doesn't change anything. It has to be the properties of that layer 0. So just changing colors doesn't do anything. It has to be by layer. But adding a new layer, making it a different color, no problem. The things that were drawn on the 0 layer switch properties. The things that were on their own layer keep the properties. And if you insert a block, it's automatically going to bring in the layers that were in that block. So now I can control that or that or that. So make sure you keep that in mind. Do you want your block to be affected by the layer it's on or not? Let's see, what else do we got in here that we can look at? This one right here is just quick selecting. So if you want to pick some just general things, so like we want all the text or all the circles, and you have to pick kind of a property to pick it based on, and so you can select things overall by that. You can pick everything by that's on all your circle that's on a certain layer, whatever. You could do that and pick all kinds of stuff at once to put on this block. Usually blocks are smaller things, and so doing that really is a little extra work. You could add hyperlinks into it, so you click on it, it opens the link. Don't really need to do that too much. And we can, of course, use some of the parametric stuff, and we'll get to that when we go into dynamic blocks. And we can have attributes, which have properties and things for them. So we'll talk all about that later, but for now, just be able to create the blocks, looking at the properties. Here under annotative is a really good one. Turn on and off the scale uniform, and those things allows you to do it. So I think I had all these on uniform, and so let me check if they're showing the properties. So if I go into use the blocks from libraries, just go to the recent here, where I can change my scale. So if I pick that one, that's uniform scale, so I can't change the XYZ. This one, I can change the XYZ, so I can either pick here and I can change it now, or I can go in here and type in what my values are. And now when I drag it in, you can see the Y is scaled up 3. Or I can tell it to rotate ahead of time with an angle, or I can just click here, bring it in, and now I should have too many buttons. I guess when you just drag it, it's going to stay the same orientation. But if I double click on it, now I can click, and now it's going to ask me to rotate wherever I want it. So I can do that there to bring that in. So lots of different options that I can use when creating that block that affect how it's used when we insert it. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Bye.